poor diet has overtaken tobacco as the leading cause of early death globally, right? That's not just a sensational stat for a podcast that I'm making up. This is Global Health Observatory data. This is World Health Organization data. The WHO say it's about equal, actually. But in the UK, it's probably a close second to tobacco because so many of us still smoke. Okay, so this is a huge problem. In the 1960s, we would all be sitting here smoking. I'd be smoking, you'd be smoking, everyone out there would be smoking. We'd probably have cigarette ads at the beginning, in the middle, and the end of the podcast, wouldn't we? And that's where we are with the food environment. Everything we consume, so particularly children who are kind of the most vulnerable, because all children, even children from relatively middle class and affluent households, are poor. Children don't have money. So they get their Spotify, they get their YouTube, they get all their apps and games. The way those things are made accessible to them is they're sponsored, and they're mainly sponsored by companies that sell harmful food. So there is this sort of 360-degree control. So the main focus of my academic work and my advocacy is trying to change the food environment and trying to essentially get a bit of regulation on these corporations. The thing about the food companies is they're not just similar to tobacco companies in terms of their incentives. They were the tobacco companies. So in the mid-1980s, Philip Morris and R.J. Reynolds, two biggest tobacco companies in the world, bought Nabisco, General Foods and Kraft. And they took all their flavor molecules from the labs, and they took all their marketing techniques, and they used it to create the diet that we now eat, that grew in the States, and now we consume in the UK. So that these foods are somewhat addictive and marketed in this very aggressive way with loyalty campaigns very directly to kids. It's not very surprising. It all came from the tobacco industry. So we need to kind of deeply understand that. And when we look at tobacco control, we need to take those lessons and say, yeah, the food is addictive. It is essentially unregulated. And we need to have some regulations that mean that my 6-year-old can't walk into any shop with her pocket money and buy any old thing she wants, and there's not even a warning on it. I mean, if you think of a can of cola, you don't have to believe the evidence on ultra-processed food to agree that that's harmful, right? So a can of cola is a mixture of sugar, which everyone agrees will destroy teeth, create inflammation, drive weight gain, and cause metabolic disease. That's indisputable. But it's also got phosphoric acid and citric acid and flavorings, and it has no nutritional benefit. There is no warning on a can of Coke in the UK. It's wild. How has this happened? It's got caffeine, an addictive drug, and the energy drinks, Amelia Lake's work, the energy drinks are even worse. So I don't think it's not proposing anything too wild that we should start to regulate this industry. If you buy a pack of cigarettes now in the UK, you pay the tax on it, it's got a warning label, it's in a plain pack behind a counter, you sort of know what you're getting into. We have anti-smoking campaigns. I want that situation with food. I don't want to limit anyone's choice. I don't want to ban food. What we want to do is create choice and opportunity and drive down the price of real food.
And obviously we do that through knowledge, right? So people have their eyes wide open when they eat certain things. So would you explain to me why, and you had a 30-day junk food diet, didn't you? How that affects our brains?
So in terms of the mechanisms, we could point at a number of very plausible ways that we think this food drives harm. Okay, so the first thing is the kind of totality of the food. Every single product has thousands of properties. It's got softness, texture, smoothness, fattiness. It's got a color. It's got smell. It's in a particular package. It's got an advertising jingle. Every single one of those properties has been optimized over decades in some cases. The cereals we ate as kids, our kids are eating. And in my case, my dad used to eat the same cereals that my kids now eat. These are 60-year-old cereals. All of them have been optimized to drive excess consumption. So that's how the food is made addictive.
How have they done that?
Partly by A/B testing. So we get. Forgive me, Damien, but we get A version of the breakfast cereal and B version of the breakfast cereal. We feed them to 100 people, and the two things that are measured, the two of the most important things that the companies measure, are how much do you eat and how quickly do you eat it. And if product A is the one that you eat quickest, that goes on the shelf. Now, next year, we reformulate it, A versus C, add a bit more sugar, slightly cheaper emulsifier. Can we drive down the price of the ingredients whilst making the food more palatable? And we don't care whether you enjoy the food, we just care how much did you eat and how quickly did you eat it. Because one of the best evidence things about food is it's soft food that's high energy, that drives addiction, and that bypasses our evolved mechanisms that say we're full.
You know, Huel has been a staple of my diet for some time, and I'm currently loving these Huel Daily A to Z vitamins. Tastes great, refreshing. Each can has 26 vitamins and minerals, offering 154 science-backed health benefits. Reduced tiredness and fatigue, normal cognitive function, healthy skin, hair and nails, and vitamin D for immunity. This is a vitamin drink that offers everything you could need it to. So what are you waiting for? Grab it right now in Tesco stores nationwide or at huel.com and let me know what you think.
When you eat real food, particularly kids, essentially if kids eat traditional human food, meat, cheese, eggs, milk, vegetables, fruit, they really maintain a healthy weight. Very, very few kids will live with excess weight, okay? It's food, and that's because they have an internal mechanism that says, I'm done, I'm full. We all have this mechanism. The food, ultra-processed food, has been engineered to get around those satiety hormones and the satiety signals between the brain and the gut that say, okay, you're done now, you can stop eating. And loads of us will have the experience, right? You'll be eating, crisps, soda pop, you'll have ordered an ultra-processed takeaway, you'll be eating a burger and chips from a high street chain, and you won't be enjoying it. So it's a bit like cigarettes in that sense. You're not loving it, but despite the jingles, get the lawyers to look at that, and yet you will just keep doing it. Once you pop, you can't stop. And so the companies, the companies are really aware they're doing this, right? We have a breakfast cereal called Crave. We have jingles like once you pop, you can't stop. All of the mascots of the breakfast cereal are addicted to the cereals. If you think about it, some of them are like destroying houses to get to the cereal.
So are people actually addicted to this stuff?
So that's been a matter of some controversy. I think, addiction is very straightforward. If you want to know if you're addicted to something, you ask, Damien, you understand this extremely well. Do you have a relationship with it where you know it's doing you physical, mental, psychological, social harm? You're trying to stop consuming the substance, and yet you find yourself consuming it anyway. That's the basic definition of addiction. We can refine it and ask more questions. There are more detailed questionnaires, but that's how we discover it. We don't put people in a scanner or do a blood test. We just ask them questions. And so people who live with alcohol addiction find they are not in control of their alcohol intake. They want to stop, they know it's harming them, and they can't. Go and speak to people who live with food addiction, and I would say I am on that spectrum toward the addicted end, and they find it impossible to stop. I have many patients who live with enormously excess weight. They live with metabolic disease. Some of them have had amputations for type 2 diabetes, and yet they're unable to stop eating the food. So the evidence, and this is research coming out of Yale, Princeton, Oxford, this is not weird niche science. Really important to remember, the food is often compared to cocaine, tobacco, and alcohol.
Yeah.
Now, and that seems extreme. If we give 100 people cocaine, tobacco, or alcohol, only around 10 out of 100 will develop a problem relationship. Loads of people try those drugs and they're fine. Loads of people can have one beer on a Friday night, never think about beer on a Monday morning. Food is the same. It's about 10 to 15% of people that once they try the food, they can't stop using it or they struggle to stop. And always the products seem to be ultra-processed products. No one is addicted to their mum's pasta bake.